When we first open AxeEdit,
AxeEdit 3, AxeEdit 3, AxeEdit 3, window. Busy, progress indicator, AxeEdit 3.
Go to the end of the window, you get that busy progress
indicator.
You have to wait for that to go away.
Edit text.
Right, so now that's gone. The first key command I would use is a built-in key command, built into AxeEdit. It is Command-Shift-W. That maximizes the window.
Settings.
See, I clicked and the focus shift to settings. It needs to be in this state for any of these things to work properly. Right, now if you look at this AxeEdit window,
pause button.
I've just gone to the beginning and you land on that pause button. That's the first element. Now, normally in Mac apps, Voiceover, everything will be in groups. So you vow arrow around and you interact with the different groups, and then that opens all the different elements for that group. If you turn groups off, and then you have to arrow through thousands of things, and it's really inefficient and terrible. That's what AxeEdit is like. It has no groups, so there's no interacting. If you want to get from one end of the window to the other, you've got to vow arrow right, left, up, down, and try and navigate tons of stuff. It's just not practical. So you have to use hotspots to sort of jump to key areas and then navigate from there to make it more efficient. Now, you could use VoiceOver's built-in hotspots, and they will work, but I find them unreliable. They fail all the time, and you have to constantly redo them. So a much better option is to use the app Keyboard Maestro, which one of the actions in there, you create macros, and one of them is an action called move or click mouse. And it basically just lets you route the mouse to a position on the screen. You press a key command like Control 1, the mouse will move to that position. Then you can use the VoiceOver key command, which routes the VoiceOver to the mouse pointer. Those are the hotspots I use. I have about 5 of them, I think, 5 or 6. That's all you really need to put yourself in key areas. Like, for instance, if I press Control 5, it doesn't speak. That is a Keyboard Maestro command. That has now moved the mouse pointer to the preset name for the current preset. So if I now press the key command for route VoiceOver to mouse pointer,
preset name, Mutatron biphasor, edit text.
It says preset name and it reads the preset name. So if I vow left from the preset name,
preset number 0316, edit text.
It's on the preset number. Now that is really useful. That's more useful than the preset name, because what you can do there, if you click in there, you can type a number.
Edit text, content selected, selection replaced, 0. Group.
So I just pressed 0385. I clicked on it, typed
0. Window.
That's quite an annoying thing that's come into the Mac recently with one of the updates. It says AxeEdit has a new window. It does that quite often, and it really gets on your nerves. That's not AxeEdit's fault. It's something that came in. But anyway, I just typed in, I clicked on the number, typed 0385.
Preset name, Jimmy 2 was, edit text. Preset number, 0385, edit text.
So I went from 316 to 385. I'll go back to 316.
Edit text, content selected, selection replaced, 0. Group. Preset name, Mutatron biphasor, edit text.
Now we're back to this, whatever
AxeEdit 3.
Muted something phaser. Right, so that's the first thing. If you know the number of a preset, let's say you go and look at a preset list, or you've heard someone talking about a preset, that's how you can jump straight to it. Or if you're flicking through the presets and you find something you like the sound of, you can check the number so you can always get back to it later. So that's the first thing you'll probably want to do, is how do you flick through the presets? There is a
next preset button.
A next preset button right next to the preset name, but it's not an efficient way to do it because the previous preset.
Preset name, preset number, scene select, CPU 40 tempo, what TAP, but tuner button, help, settings, tools, block, settings, tuner, TAP, tempo, CPU 4, scene select, preset number, preset name, next preset, but preset picker, on, off, scene 3.
Look at that. I'm looking around. I don't even know where it is. That's how bad. It should be right next to it. Should be on the other side, but it isn't.
Off, on, next preset button, preset name.
So that's not an efficient way to do it. You would either do it, there is no keyboard shortcut that I know of, I don't think, that lets you flick through presets in the AxeEdit. So you either do it from the hardware device itself. If you have a foot controller, you could do it from the foot controller as well. So as long as your FX hardware, the device itself, is in the home screen, pressing the nav keys or using the value knob, but I prefer the nav keys because it's more accurate. Pressing the nav keys left and right will move you backwards and forwards through the presets. Turn my guitar up. So I'm just going to press the right arrow on the nav keys to flick through presets. Okay, so I'll go back to where I was. I think that's the one.
Next preset name, Mutatron by Phaser, edit text.
So that's it. I was just strumming the open strings of my guitar and flicking through till you find something that sounds roughly what you want. And then you can use the up-down navigation keys to flick through the scenes, because sometimes you get a very different sound from one of the scenes than you do from the main preset. I'm just pressing down on the nav keys and back up again. All of those sounded pretty similar, but some of them are radically different. So that's how you would flick through the presets and the scenes to find something that gets you in the ballpark of what you're looking for. Now you've found a preset you're interested in. Obviously, the next thing you'll want to do is tweak some of the blocks, parameters. In the middle of the Axe edit, there is a grid that is 6 rows by 14 columns. Voiceover, though, refers to the first row as row 0 and the first column as row 0. So the third row down would actually be called row 2 by Voiceover, just to make things confusing. And I mentioned the third row down because all the factory presets have the main signal path on the third row down. Now I have a hotspot for the grid. The sensible thing would seem to be to put it on the first, the first row and the first column, but then you're always having to arrow from there. So I found the best place to put the grid hotspot is on the row where all the main signal path is, near where the amp usually is, which is column 5. So I'll trigger my grid hotspot and it will give us a few key pieces of information when it lands on it. It will tell us the row number, the column number, the name of the component that is occupying that space, whether or not it's bypassed or active, and whether or not that block is selected. It will also say radio button, but that doesn't mean anything.
Grid row 2 column 5, phaser 1A, active, radio button.
You just use the VO left and right, up and down arrows to move around this grid. I'm just going to move left to the start of this row just to show you.
Grid row 2 column 4, amp 1A, act grid row 2 column 3, drive 1A, bypassed, grid row 2 column 2, shunt, radio button.
A shunt is it's a block in the grid that allows audio to flow through. If that was empty, the signal would be broken. So you have to put, even though there's no effect in there, you have to put something in to allow the signal to flow through, and that's what shunts do.
Grid row 2 column 1, compressor 1A, bypassed, radio button.
So the compressor's bypassed.
Grid row 2 column 0, input 1A, active, radio button.
Now you heard that said column 0. That's actually the first column. It just, Voiceover calls it 0, and that's the input. Every preset has to have an input and an output block. Now if I arrow up from here,
grid row 1 column 0, empty, radio, grid row 0 column 0, empty, radio button.
So you see there empty. You can put anything in any of these empty blocks. So I'll go back to the main signal path.
Grid row 2 column 0, input 1A, active, radio button.
Now I want to put some delay on that, so I'll look for the delay. If there isn't one there, we could put one in, but there is one there, so we'll just go and find it.
Grid row 2 column 5, phaser 1A, grid row 2 column 6, cat 1A, grid row 2 column 7, shunt, radio button, grid row 2 column 8, delay 1A, bypassed, radio button.
So there's the delay, and it's bypassed. In order to enable it, we first click it with the VO space, the normal select command.
Selected.
It says selected. Now all we need to do is hit the space bar on your keyboard. That is an axe edit key command.
Group.
Now you can hear that the delay is turned on. Now, to get to the parameters of a block, first a block needs to be selected before the parameters will show up. And where they show up is below the grid. So my parameters hotspot takes us to the very last thing on the grid.
Grid slider button.
So it takes us to that grid slider button. Below every column, there is a button called the grid slider button. Don't know what they do. We never need to use them. But if I vote right from here...
Time, 251 milliseconds. Modifier disabled. Vertical slider.
That's the first parameter of the delay block. A time in milliseconds. If you have it set to a rhythmic delay, which we'll do in a minute, that wouldn't be there. So it said a few things there. It told you the name of it, which is time. It told you the value, which was 250 milliseconds. It said something about modifier disabled. We'll get into that. And it also said it was a vertical slider. So if I want to adjust the value of that, you just use another axe edit key command, which is the up and down arrows. So it was on 250, which sounds like that. I'll just press the up arrow a few times. You can hear that slowed down a bit. If I want to hear the value, it won't, because it's not a voiceover key command, it won't announce the value as you change it. The only way to know is to go off it and back on it again.
Tempo, time, 401 milliseconds. Modifier disabled, vertical slider.
So you see it went from 250 to 400. But I don't want milliseconds. I want a rhythmic delay. So if we vote right from here.
Tempo, none, pop-up button.
You can hear it says tempo none. And it was a pop-up button. Now, there's a thing about these pop-up buttons. You can click them and select from a list. But if there's a lot of options, it opens a picker window that is not accessible. You have to use VOCR to navigate it. So I would recommend not clicking buttons if you think there might be a lot of choices. If there's only a few choices, you'll get an accessible menu. But I know for a fact this isn't one of those things. This will open a picker window. But luckily, when you're on one of these pop-up buttons, the arrows still work to flick through the options. So as you can hear,
tempo, none, pop-up button.
It's on none at the moment. If I down arrow a couple of times,
one tempo, one dot, pop-up button.
It's on one dot. I'll arrow down a few more times.
1/tempo, 1/4, pop-up button.
1/4, so a quarter note. I'm going to go down to eighth notes. I think it'll be
tempo 1/8 dot, pop-up button. 1/8.
So I've put that to eighth now. Now that will be dependent on the tempo. Obviously, it'll be one of those every eighth note, every 1 and 2 and. So I want a tempo, something like that, to get that in time. So I'm going to use the tap tempo on the actual hardware device. First, I'll show you what the tempo is, but I'll go to preset.
Preset name, Mutatron biphasor.
And then I'll vote left from here to here.
Preset num, scene select, CPU for tempo, 120 BPM. Edit
so
text.
see, it's on that standard kind of 120. That'll be just the default. I'm going to use tap tempo. There's a tempo button on the actual hardware. There is a tap button next to this.
TAP button.
But I prefer to use the one on the device. There is a tempo button, the fourth one along. I'm just going to tap that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Tempo, 83 BPM. Edit text.
See, now that's changed it to 83. So that's in time now. So the other thing is, what if I don't want that delay? I want more of a stereo spread delay. The quickest way to get to the pop-up button, they'll let you change the type of components. If it was amps, all the different amps. If it was cabinets, all the different cabinets. That's right near the end of the window. So I'll just hit go to end.
Unlinked.
And then I'll vote left till I get to the pop-up button.
Global block, library, pop-up button, analog stereo, pop-up button.
Not that one. That's something else.
Analog stereo type. Analog stereo, pop-up button.
That's the one we're talking about because it's a delay. It's an analog stereo delay. And again, if we click that, it would open a picker window because there are a lot of them. So I'm just going to down arrow and keep tapping my guitar till I get one of the stereo spread ones. There you go. Now, as it's a kind of rhythmic delay, the next thing I might want to do is just increase the volume of the delay a little bit, and that will be the mix control. So I'm going to activate my parameters hotspot.
Grid slider button, tempo L, 1/8.
And I'm just going to vote right until I get to the mix control, because that's what it'll be. It'll be the wet dry mix. That will be low.
1/8, tempo L, master time, feedback L, grade, master feedback, level L, pen L, time R, tempo R, none, tempo R, L/R, time, feedback R, level R, pen R, input gain, mix, 8.5%, modifier disabled.
There it is, the mix. It's only at 8%. So again, I'll just use the arrow keys to increase that. That's a bit better.
Level, mix, 19.5%,
So
modifier disabled, vertical slider.
And that's basically it. Remember, pop-up buttons and sliders can be accessed with arrow keys. Command up and down will do a finer control, but you don't really need that very much. And the other thing I would say, you can click on these sliders, edit sliders, and type a value in, but it's not a good idea. It can cause problems. You can. It's hard to describe because it's been a while since I've done it, but you can get little buggy issues, and I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend just using the arrow keys. Probably the best way to get a good idea of the accessibility of the Axe Edit in a kind of more comprehensive way is to just build a preset from scratch completely. So I'm on an empty preset here.
Preset number 0500. Preset name less than empty greater than edit text.
So it's empty. There's nothing in the grid. I'm going to create a signal path along the third row like the factory presets. So I'm going to use my grid hotspot.
Grid row 2 column 5 empty radio button.
So I'm on column 5. I'm going to go to column 0.
Grid row 2 column 1 grid row 2 column 0 empty radio button.
Empty. I'm going to select that.
Selected.
Now I'm going to press my tools menu hotspot, which will
Tools.
takes me to the tools menu, and then I'm going to vo left from there.
Block.
That's a menu, that block. I'm going to click that.
Menu window Inox edit 3 window move.
Did you hear those 2 clicks? Whenever you open a menu, I'll escape from this and show you this again.
With tools X edit 3 block.
Whenever you open one of these menus, always wait for the second click before you try to arrow.
Menu window Inox edit 3 window move.
Hear the second click. Now I'm going to go all the way to the end of this menu because it's near the bottom what I want.
Library.
I'm going to vo up once.
Insert.
Insert is what I want.
Menu window Inox edit 3 window shunt.
Again, wait for the second click. Now I'm going to put an input in. Input, click the input.
Menu window Inox edit 3 window input 1 input 1.
Wait for the second click. Now you've got
input 2 input 3 input 4 input USB.
So you've got all your inputs.
Input 1.
I'm going to put input 1 in.
Block group.
Now I'm going to go back to the grid.
Grid row 2 column 5. Grid row 2 column 2. Grid row 2 column 0. Input 1A. Active. Selected. Radio
So
button.
now I've got input 1A in that first column and it's active. Now I'm going to go across this row right to the end to column 13.
Grid row 2 column 10. Empty. Grid row 2 column 13. Empty. Radio button.
And now I'm going to do the same again. Selected.
It.
Go to my tools.
Tools. Block.
Across to block.
Menu
Click
window. Inox edit 3 window move. Library. Insert.
To insert.
Menu window. Inox edit 3 window shunt. Input output.
Down to output.
Menu window. Inox edit 3 window output 1. Output 1.
And I'm going to choose output 1.
Block group. Preset. Block.
Now you'll see the focus isn't in the grid. It's still on that block menu. So to get back into the grid, I've got to use my hotspot.
Tempo. Grid row 2 column 5. Empty. Radio button. Grid row 2 column 5. Empty. Radio button.
You get into, hotspots, you're going to have to use them an awful lot. So now...
Grid row 2 column 1. Empty. Grid row 2 column 0. Input 1A. Active.
So
radio
we've
button.
got an input at column 0, which is really column 1. And we've got an output at column 13, which is really column 14. But, that's voiceover for you. So now we need to make a connection between these two. We need to run a signal from the input to the output. You can do it all in one maneuver. Now, the Axe Edit, it does have all the jack sockets, all the inputs and output sockets for all the components, but they're all grouped together in one place and they don't have names. They just say jack socket, jack socket, jack socket. So knowing which one belongs, which one's the out for the one we want and which one's the in for the one we connect it to, it's so difficult. You can do it, but it's really tough to do. So the best way to make a connection between the input and the output is to use the hardware itself. And the way you do that is when you're in the home screen, you can press the home button just in case to make sure that's where it is. If you remember those 5 encoders below the screen that are labeled A, B, C, D, and E, if you press B, the second one from the left, press that, it will take you to the layout grid. And in the layout grid, it has the same grid of 14 columns and 6 rows. There's a yellow square that you can move around the grid with the nav keys. When you first turn it on, it should be in the top, left, the first column, top row. But it isn't always. Sometimes it's moved and you don't realize. So the best way to get it into the top left is to just use the nav keys on the hardware device. Go left loads of times. Just click left 10 times and then click up a bunch of times. And what it does is it doesn't wrap. So if you press left loads of times, when it gets to the first column, it'll just stop there. And then if you press up loads of times, when it gets to the top row, it'll stop there. So now you know it's in the top. It's in the first column, the top row. And we know that our input 1 is in the third row down in the first column. So all we need to do is go down twice. So I've pressed the down arrow twice. Now that highlight should be over that input. But how do we know if it is or it isn't? There's nothing on the Axe Edit that will tell me. What you can do is, the third encoder, the C encoder of those 5, if you press that, it will bypass whatever component is highlighted by the yellow square on the device. So I'll press that now, And then if I look at that input 1,
Grid row 1, column 0. Grid row 2, column 0. Input 1A. Bypassed. Radio
see
button.
it's bypassed. I'll press that C encoder again. And I'll go
Grid row
on.
1, grid row 2, column 0. Input 1A. Active. Radio button.
Now it's active, so I know the focus must be on the square that I'm interested in. That's how I check where the focus is. It sounds a bit clumsy, but it works. It's always good to know, because if you start trying to make connections and changes to things, and the highlight's in a different place to where you think it is, you'll make a right mess. Now, if I had audio signal, which I don't at the moment because I haven't made a connection, I wouldn't need to check it on accent. I could hear my guitar. If you bypass the input while your guitar is plugged in, you'll lose audio, and that's how you can tell. And then you re-enable it, and the audio will come back. That's a great way to know exactly where you are which is highlighted on the device. So to make a connection between this input and output, because they're along the same row, with the highlighted on the input, I'll just press and hold the enter key, and it will fill that whole row with shunts and make a connection right from one side to the other. See, there you go. I've just strummed my guitar to check that the connection was made. So now if I check it on the Axe Edit,
Grid row 2, column 1. Shunt. Radio button. Grid row 2, column 0. Input 1A. Active. Radio button.
see there we've got input 1A. Now there are shunts all the way along to the output.
Grid row 2, column 1. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 2. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 3. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 4. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 11. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 12. Shunt. Grid row 2, column 13. Output 1A. Active.
So we've
Selected. Radio
successfully made a connection from in to out just by highlighting the input on the device itself and pressing and holding the enter key. Now, this is a good time to save the project. So if you accidentally knocked the value knob and went to a different preset, you'd lose this and have to start again. So not only would I save it now, but if you're doing this for the first time, it's really great to export this preset as it is, with just an input and an output and a set of shunts right from one end to the other with signal. It's a great starting point for any new preset. So now, if we wanted to just export this, we use an Axe Edit built-in command, which is Control-Shift-Command-X.
Group. Empty. Content selected. Save as. Edit text. Export preset. Save as. Tab.
So we get a normal kind of export dialog. We name it, we pick a location, and we click save, and that's this exported. I won't do it because I've done it before already. So I'll just escape from that.
Axe Edit 3. Window. Preset.
So that's how you export a preset. If you wanted to import a preset, you just do another built-in command, Control-Shift-Command-I for import.
One item selected. Presets. Group. Import preset.
Now we're in a picker window.
Cancel button. Column view. In column view. Dual chorus 806. Group. Empty 6. Group. Solo 99. Empty 6. Group.
That's what I've saved. That's my starting point. If I clicked on that and imported that, I would have the input and the output and the shunts and a full connection from one end to the other. Great place to start.